Imagine this. You're flying a British Spitfire at full speed, chasing down a German Bf-109. You dive sharply to escape enemy fire, and suddenly, your engine sputters, coughs, and dies. That was the nightmare many Royal Air Force pilots faced in the early days of World War II. A simple maneuver could mean losing your engine, and maybe your life. But then, a woman named Beatrice Schilling stepped in. Not with bombs, not with bullets, but with a small metal washer. A part so cheap it cost less than 50 cents, yet it saved over 2,000 pilots from a fiery fate. This is the story of the brilliant engineer who outsmarted German aircraft without ever leaving the ground, and how her quiet genius became one of the most overlooked victories of the war. Beatrice Tilly Schilling was born in 1909 in England. From a young age, she was fascinated with how things worked. As a teenager, she rebuilt motorcycles and even raced them competitively. At a time when women were rarely seen in engineering, she was already breaking barriers. In the 1930s, she earned an engineering degree and later joined the Royal Aircraft Establishment. Her job? Test aircraft engines and find mechanical problems before they became deadly. But Beatrice didn't just do her job. She revolutionized it. In 1940, RAF pilots were reporting a terrifying issue. Every time they pushed their planes into a steep dive, their engines would stall. And in a dogfight, a stalled engine meant disaster. German fighters, especially the Bf-109, didn't have this problem. They used fuel injection systems. British planes didn't. British fighters relied on carburetors, which flooded under negative G-force. This flooding caused the engines to choke and fail mid-combat. It wasn't just an inconvenience, it was getting pilots killed. Engineers struggled to find a solution. New engines would take too long to produce. Major redesigns weren't feasible during active war. The RAF needed a fix. Fast. That's when Beatrice Schilling entered the picture. She studied the carburetor problem and realized something incredibly simple. The flooding occurred because fuel was sloshing uncontrollably inside. She designed a small metal restrictor, just a washer with a hole. It limited the fuel flow without damaging performance. The device could be installed quickly and cheaply. Officially, it was known as the RAE restrictor, but among pilots, it became known as Miss Schilling's orifice. Crude name? Maybe, but pilots loved it. It let them dive, climb, and roll without losing engine power. It was field-tested and proved effective instantly. Engineers could install it in under 30 minutes. Suddenly, Spitfires and Hurricanes could match the Bf-109 maneuver for maneuver. The playing field had changed. Not with new planes, but with a metal ring the size of a coin. Beatrice traveled from base to base installing the part herself. She worked tirelessly, training mechanics and ensuring every fighter had the fix. Her work wasn't glamorous, but it was vital. Many pilots credited their survival to her invention, and she never once asked for credit. Beatrice wasn't after fame. She wanted to save lives. By 1941, thousands of RAF planes had the restrictor installed. Combat losses due to engine failure plummeted. The RAF's dogfighting success increased dramatically. Morale soared across the Air Force. One simple washer had changed the outcome of aerial combat. Beatrice continued working throughout the war. She tested engines, improved designs, and helped Britain maintain air superiority. Her work was meticulous, quiet, and often invisible to the public, but the impact was undeniable. After the war, she received official honors. She was appointed Officer of the Order of the British Empire, OBE. But outside military circles, few knew her name. While men who flew the planes became legends, the woman who saved them was largely forgotten. In later years, historians began to rediscover her story. They uncovered documents, testimonies, and reports that highlighted her brilliance. Engineers praised her innovation as elegant and genius-level simplicity. Modern aviation schools now teach her contribution as a case study in problem solving. Even today, her restrictor is seen as a symbol of battlefield ingenuity. So why does her story matter today? Because in times of crisis, it's not always strength or firepower that wins wars. Sometimes it's intelligence, creativity, and a little metal washer. Beatrice showed the world that no role is too small, that great minds can win great battles, even from the sidelines. She passed away in 1990, but her legacy lives on, not just in textbooks or museums, but in every life her work helped save. When we think of World War II heroes, we often picture soldiers, pilots, generals, but we should also remember the engineers behind the scenes, the women who fought with science instead of swords, who defied expectations and quietly changed history. Just like Beatrice Schilling, the woman who saved the skies with a 50-cent washer.
After World War II, the contributions of engineers like Beatrice often faded into the background of post-war reconstruction. Yet, she continued to work in a field that was still heavily dominated by men, breaking barriers with each passing year. At the Royal Aircraft Establishment, Beatrice moved into more advanced research, working on jet propulsion and aerodynamics. Her sharp analytical mind and fearless attitude made her a respected voice in technical discussions. Colleagues often described her as unshakable, focused, fair, and fiercely intelligent. Despite the immense pressure of her work, she remained humble and grounded. Outside the lab, Beatrice kept her love for speed alive. She continued motorcycle racing, competing even into middle age, often stunning younger riders with her skills. Her personal motorcycle was rumored to be faster than many professional bikes of the time. Speed was in her blood, and solving problems was her fuel. She also became an advocate for women in engineering. She mentored younger female engineers, encouraging them to challenge norms and pursue technical careers. Though she never openly described herself as a feminist, her actions spoke volumes. She believed in excellence, regardless of gender, and expected the same from others. Despite her wartime contributions, Beatrice remained modest about her role. She rarely gave interviews or wrote memoirs. In fact, most of what we know today comes from reports, pilot testimonies, and military records. But make no mistake, her impact was felt across the entire RAF. A generation of pilots flew with more confidence thanks to her simple invention. In times of crisis, her name quietly echoed in hangars, repair bays, and airstrips across Britain. Over the years, engineers and historians began to recognize the elegance of her restrictor design. It wasn't just a patch. It was a masterclass in mechanical engineering under pressure. The restrictor didn't require overhauls, didn't compromise performance, and didn't demand new manufacturing lines. It was a perfect solution for a problem that had cost lives. And it came from someone who understood machines at their most fundamental level. By the late 20th century, Beatrice's contributions were being rediscovered. Documentaries, articles, and technical journals began mentioning her name again. Aviation historians were shocked to learn just how much one person had done behind the scenes. Universities started using her work as a model for problem-solving in engineering ethics courses. Her story became more than just history. It became a lesson in innovation under pressure. In recent years, the phrase Miss Schilling's orifice has regained attention, but this time it's told with respect and admiration. Reminds us that even crude nicknames can't diminish brilliant work. That sometimes legends are built not with thunder, but with precision tools and quiet minds. Beatrice Schilling never sought recognition. Yet her story stands today as a shining example of ingenuity in wartime. A reminder that battles are not only fought on the front lines, but also in the minds of those who refuse to give up. Her 50-cent fix saved millions of pounds in aircraft, and more importantly, thousands of lives.
Today, if you visit certain RAF museums, you might spot her name, a photograph, a display about the restrictor, a quiet nod to the woman who made Spitfires roar with confidence again. It's not flashy, but it's earned. In 2020, a movement began to name engineering scholarships in her honor. Universities in the UK and US highlighted her as a pioneer for women in STEM. Slowly, the world started catching up with what she had done. Students began quoting her as an example of how small fixes can solve big problems. In a time when flashy inventions get headlines, Beatrice Schilling's legacy is different. It's about substance, clarity, and effectiveness. She didn't need applause, just results. And she got them, over and over again. So, the next time you see a fighter jet soaring through the sky, remember, behind every flight, there's a team of thinkers, builders, and problem solvers. People who made it safe to fly, to dive, to return home. People like Beatrice Schilling. In classrooms and flight schools, her story is now told with pride. Young engineers study her design. Pilots honor her memory. And historians remind us that heroes come in many forms. She didn't wear a cape. She didn't carry a weapon. But she outsmarted one of the greatest threats the RAF had ever faced. And in doing so, she rewrote the rules of air combat forever.